Then, on the eve of what seemed to be an inevitable clash, Amara stood alone on a hill, overlooking the Iron Kingdom's camp. The weight of her people's future pressed down on her, but she remembered the words of her ancestors. To fight is to understand, to thrive is to heal. She did not seek bloodshed. She did not seek to defeat Kofi in the way he imagined. Instead, Amara sent a messenger to him, offering peace. She invited him to a gathering under the baobab tree, an offer for dialogue, a test of strength through wisdom, rather than violence. Kofi, seeing the vulnerability in Amara's gesture, agreed, his pride more dangerous than any sword. He arrived with his warriors, cold and calculating, but what he found beneath the baobab tree was not the expected submission. Instead, he found a village bound not by fear, but by the power of their shared roots. Amara stood before him, calm yet unwavering. We fight not for conquest, Kofi. We fight for freedom, for the right to remain who we are. We fight for the land, and for each other. The winds of change had come once more. The real battle, Amara realized, was not against a man with a sword, but against the forces that sought to divide her people from their very essence. And as the sun set on that fateful day, Amara knew that the roots of her people, strong and unyielding, would carry them through any storm. The next few days were tense. Kofi, still skeptical of Amara's peace offering, agreed to stay for the gathering beneath the baobab tree, but made it clear he would not be swayed by speeches or stories. His eyes, cold as iron, scanned the villagers, measuring them, weighing their resolve. He was a man who had known nothing but power and conquest. Could words, unity, and heritage truly be stronger than the sword? Amara, though apprehensive, stood firm. She knew that in the presence of the Iron Kingdom's might, there would be no room for weakness, no room for hesitation. But her faith was not in the power of her people's fists. It was in their hearts. The true strength, she believed, lay in the shared memories of their ancestors, the wisdom that had been passed down through generations. This strength was unbreakable, and if Kofi sought to break it, he would have to first understand it. That evening, as the villagers gathered beneath the baobab tree, a heavy silence fell over the assembly. Kofi stood by his soldiers, his arms crossed, waiting for Amara to speak. The villagers, young and old, warrior and healer, watched her expectantly, their unity evident in the way they stood together, their eyes full of quiet strength. Amara took a deep breath and stepped forward, the weight of her ancestors' spirit guiding her. Kofi of the Iron Kingdom, she began, her voice carrying over the silence. You have come seeking power, but what is power, if it only serves to break the spirit of those it rules? What is strength, if it is built on the backs of the weak? Kofi's face hardened, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes, a momentary doubt, perhaps. Amara pressed on. We do not seek to conquer, we seek to live in harmony with the earth, and with one another. Our strength is not in gold, nor in weapons. Our strength is in the roots that bind us together, the stories that keep us grounded, and the love we hold for our land. One of the elders, a woman with long, silver hair and a face full of wisdom, stepped forward. She was the first to speak after Amara. The land belongs to those who cherish it, she said softly, and those who forget their roots will find themselves lost, no matter how strong their weapons, or how high their walls. This land has given us life, and in return, we protect it with everything we are. The wind began to pick up, swirling around the baobab tree, as if the earth itself was listening. Kofi, for the first time, seemed to hesitate. He had come to claim what he believed was his by force, but something about the strength of these people, their unwavering connection to the land, gave him pause. He had known many tribes before, many people who feared him, who cowered beneath his power, but this was different. You speak of roots, of love for the land, Kofi said, his voice almost softer now, though still laced with authority. But what will you do when faced with a kingdom that has no such weaknesses? What will you do when your enemies do not care for your stories, your unity, or your earth? Amara's heart beat steady, her resolve unwavering. We will fight for what is ours, not with swords, but with the strength of our spirits. the strength of our unity. We will stand together, as we always have, and show you that we are not so easily broken." The air was thick with tension as the moment stretched, neither side willing to break the silence. But then, something unexpected happened. Kofi's shoulders sagged slightly, his expression shifting from arrogance to contemplation. He looked around at the villagers, at their strength, their unity, and in that moment, something inside him seemed to shift. Perhaps it was the recognition of something he had never known, something that could not be measured by power or wealth, the strength of a people who had lived in harmony with the land for generations. "You are not what I expected," Kofi muttered, almost to himself. "Perhaps there is strength in these roots after all." Amara nodded, not with victory, but with the quiet understanding that the battle for the soul of her people was far from over. Strength is not always about defeating your enemies, Kofi. It is about knowing who you are and what you stand for, and never compromising on that. In the days that followed, Kofi remained at the village's edge, watching from a distance, but no longer threatening. He did not withdraw, but neither did he press forward with force. It seemed as though something had changed in him. Something he could not name, but felt in the depth of his bones. He had encountered a strength unlike any he had known, and though he was still a man of the Iron Kingdom, he now understood that not all power came from conquest. Amara, for her part, knew that the battle was not over. It was never over. The storms would continue to come, in many forms, but for now, the village stood firm, its roots deeper than ever before, its unity stronger than the might of any kingdom. And as she looked toward the future, Amara knew that no matter what came next, the people would fight, not just to survive but to thrive, together. The winds of change had settled, but Amara knew the storm was not over. Kofi, now an observer rather than an invader, had yet to depart the village. While he no longer threatened war, his presence lingered like a cloud on the horizon, reminding Amara that peace was fragile and easily lost. Her people, emboldened by their unity, had faced the external challenge, but she now understood that their true test lay in sustaining that unity, not just in times of conflict, but in times of peace. Days passed, and the village grew stronger, yet the scars of the past, those silent divisions that had once threatened to tear them apart, remained beneath the surface. The fear of what might come next still crept into the hearts of some. The old grudges, though softened by time, had not disappeared. And even with Kofi's retreat from open hostility, Amara knew that the greatest battle was yet to come. The battle for the soul of the village, the fight to keep their roots deeply planted in the soil of harmony and understanding. One morning, as Amara walked to the baobab tree, she found Kofi standing beneath its great branches, his face shadowed with something more than the usual arrogance, something unfamiliar, even to himself. He turned as she approached. "I didn't expect you to stay," Amara said, her voice soft but firm. "You could have returned to your kingdom by now." "I came here to conquer, to take what I wanted." Kofi's voice was quieter than she'd ever heard it. "But there's something here that I can't ignore. Something I've never known before." He paused, glancing up at the sprawling branches of the baobab. "You spoke of roots, of strength, and I find myself wondering, for the first time, if we ever truly have them where I come from." Amara studied him for a moment, seeing the cracks in his hardened exterior. She didn't speak right away, unsure if this was just another trick, another ploy to gain the upper hand. But something in his eyes and unfamiliar openness told her that Kofi was searching for something he didn't understand. "You came to conquer," Amara said finally, "but you didn't know what you were truly seeking. Power over others is a hollow victory, Kofi. It leaves you empty, disconnected from everything that really matters." She paused, her gaze shifting toward the horizon. "True power comes from knowing who you are, from understanding your roots, your past, and your people. And it comes from building something that lasts, something that doesn't crumble at the first sign of trouble." Kofi's eyes narrowed, but there was a flicker of something deeper beneath the surface. A realization, perhaps, that his life of conquest had never truly fulfilled him. "And what if I've lost everything I've ever known?" he asked. "What if the roots I have were buried so deep in the soil of conquest, that I cannot find my way back to something real. Amara stepped closer, her voice steady and compassionate. Then you start again. You plant new roots. You seek something greater than yourself, and you build it not with force, but with respect for the earth and the people who walk upon it. She smiled gently, a small, knowing smile. You can learn this, Kofi, if you want to. For a long moment, there was silence between them, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Kofi didn't speak, but his gaze softened, as if he were seeing the world through new eyes. Finally, he nodded, a small, almost imperceptible gesture. I don't know if I can change, Kofi admitted, his voice quiet. But maybe I can try. Amara nodded. That's all anyone can do. Start by listening, start by learning, and then take the first step. As the days passed, Amara and Kofi's uneasy alliance began to evolve. Kofi spent more time with the villagers, watching them rebuild and fortify their lives, not with weapons, but with the work of their hands and the strength of their community. He asked questions about the land, about their traditions, about their way of life. And slowly, he began to understand the essence of what made this village different from everything he had known. Meanwhile, Amara continued her work, guiding her people through the quiet, everyday challenges of life. She knew that the battle for unity was not over, and that they must stay vigilant. But there was something different now, something unspoken but tangible. The village was no longer just a collection of people. It was a living, breathing force, a force that had weathered storms, healed wounds, and grown stronger in the face of adversity. And so, the days turned into months, and Amara's roots, her fight, and her people thrived, not in spite of the challenges, but because of them. The true strength of her village was not in their victory over Kofi or the storm, but in their ability to evolve, to learn, and to remain deeply connected to the earth, to each other, and to the timeless wisdom of their ancestors. The journey of Amara and her village was far from over. For as long as they lived by the principles of unity, strength, and respect for the land, they would thrive, and no force, be it a storm, a kingdom, or time itself could ever take that away.